Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at Christ's Burial, a late liturgical drama from the 1520s, or at least that's when the manuscript sort of emerges. It may be based on earlier material, and we are looking at this play, following on from looking at Christ's Burial. I just said the wrong name, didn't I? Got there. Shall I just start this whole little bit again? Shall I just start this again?
Yeah,
Shall I keep this in later for the video? Shall I just keep the fact that...
Outtakes.
Okay, I'll try that again. I'll start now. Quem quaeritus in sepulchro et Christ coli. When all that is sung, I've lost it today, haven't I? I've lost it. I'm not with it at all. I was trying to be all fun and mysterious. Okay, let's. It's hot.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at Christ's Resurrection, the follow-on play from Christ's Burial, a liturgical drama from around 1520, or at least that's when the manuscript sort of surfaces. It may be based on something earlier in time. At this point, I know no more than that. I don't know a vast amount about liturgical drama because most of it has tended to be outside of our remit, either in Latin or primarily sung. But this is your honest-to-God play. And we had I'd say we had a hoot with Christ's Burial. That would be a bit of an exaggeration. We thought it was a fantastic piece of work, but it was every single aspect of grief available because Christ's Burial tends to be, possibly a bit sad. But this is its follow-up, the sequel, performed as part of services in Holy Week. And so that's the context, hopefully, that I haven't just mangled for this particular text. We have this wonderful team of people who are considerably more on the ball than I am today in this slightly warm summer's afternoon for many of us, unless you're on the other side of the world, in which case it may be a totally different experience for you. But reading the text today, playing both Jesus and the harbinger of his arrival, an angel, is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
And reading Mary Magdalen, but will be primarily pronounced as Magdalen, today is...
Hello, my name is Sascha Cooper, and I'm a professional performer, writer and director in Brighton in the UK.
And performing second Mary today is...
Liza Graham, actor, singer, and Renaissance text coach, 2 actors in London.
And reading Mary number 3, please, is...
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm here to fill up the number of Marys.
Yes, and the number of Marys does vary depending on production. We only have 3, including Mary Magdalen, for this particular text. Now, moving on to the other side of the cast, we have reading Peter today is...
Hi, my name is Lynn Freitas, and I'm a teacher and early modern drama enthusiast, and I live in the Northwest United States.
Reading Andrew today is...
I am Greg. I'm not a professional actor, and I'm based in Berkshire today.
And finally, reading John Evangelist is...
Hi, Alan Scott, another non-professional based in Suffolk.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I will be endeavouring to try and keep track of where we are in this text and seeing how it all fits together. We did notice in the last play that there were some quite long speeches possible, sometimes all sorts of interesting textual approaches to this material that we're going to see how it goes. We'll stop and start occasionally to discuss the text as it develops. The play opens with Magdalen begins by saying,
Oh, this great heaviness and pain! Alas, how long shall it endure? How long shall it remain, and rest within my most careful heart? How long shall I feel this deadly smart? Who shall my sorrow cure? How long shall I live in desolation? When should the hour come of consolation, that my master I may see, which upon the Friday last was crucified and nailed fast, piteously to the tree? So piteous a sight and lamentable, so dolorous and miserable, I hope ye shall never find. Cursed Cain was very cruel, and slew his own brother Abel of a malicious mind. Yet he was not so malicious as the cruel Jules most outrageous, where he has slain my lord. The sons of Jacob great envy had against their brother Joseph, young, wise, and sad, as scripture doth record. They intended to slow him maliciously, and yet they did not so cruelly as wrought these Jews wild. Few years past, Herod the king put to death many youngling, and many mother's child, here in the land of Israel. But of such cruelty heard ye never tell as done was one Friday, when so great rigour and tyranny was in their hearts, to gar him die, which was so gracious I. Abel and Joseph were good and gracious, but their deeds not so glorious, nor of so virtuous kind as of him which in this humanity wrought great miracles in his divinity. Alls ye may call to mind, for all his works so well devised, among them thus to be despised, and with cruelty slain. Alas, when I remember his woe, scantily may I speak or go. In heart I have such pain. I have brought here ointment precious, to ensalve his body most gracious, to do it reverence. My sister Cleof said that she to the sepulchre would go with me, and do her diligence. The third day, this is the morning, and of my dear master yet heard I nothing, wherefore I am most heavy. Alas, fellowship here is none. Rather than I fail, I will go alone. Dear Lord, your mercy.
Just briefly pause there. Always important to note with some of these early mystery plays or similar is, of course, anti-Semitism alert, constantly calling on the Jews, even though all of the characters almost always are actually Jewish themselves. It's one of those little contradictions. Magdalen is still in cheerful mode, very much from the previous play. I think it's a very similar tone. Any little thoughts about that as an opening?
It's very powerful, and you know what the thing is with Magdalen here in this instance, I think there's a slight difference between this one and the previous one that we did, in the sense there's a little bit more control, I think, to her. She's still grieving desperately, but it seems more dignified than she was last time. It's like she's kind of starting to get herself together, and she's been brave. Because, I mean, she says, you know, nobody else is going to be there to help. Rather than let him down, I will do this myself. And that's a pretty brave thing for a woman in that time to do, especially if we are led to believe that she is of the profession that she was, so to speak.
I wonder whether when she's talking about, you know, that it feels almost like she's waiting on the corner side saying we agreed to meet now, and everybody's abandoned me and they're all useless. I'm going to go on. And so there's potential play with that in terms of her precipitousness. She is impatient to go, perhaps. Sarah.
Yeah, and also she that urgency that she has there, I think is a really nice segue into this play, because I assume that this would have been performed 3 days after the last one that we did in this series. So
yes, I didn't read this stage direction. Here begins the resurrection on Pascha Day at morn. So, and the previous one, I will just find these things. They do continue while I find it.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if you were, if you'd seen that play, I mean, it packed such a punch. Coming back to this, you know, you kind of want a little bit of, you want to lead into it. You know, you can't just come into this. I mean, you know, if you'd been there and you'd been through that play, you would need something to kind of, you know, carry you through. I think into the new scenario. So I think that's what that speech does really, really well, because it has that like urgency, that impatience, and it kind of recaptures everything, like it sort of encapsulates everything that we went through in the previous one.
And if we're thinking of this as liturgical, therefore part of it, you know, within the church, part connected with services. So the first part was on Good Friday afternoon, and this is on Easter Day after the resurrection in the morning. So, so this is first thing in the morning, leading everyone. They're still having their coffee.
I do like the specification of times of day. That you know, again, makes it very, very specific. In just in terms of feel. You know, I'm always excited when theater of this period tells you how they want it done, hints to performance practice. The only other thing to note is that Magdalen as a pronunciation is, I forget how late it's current until, but it's current until quite late. It's very much in line with Italian Maddalena and French Madeleine, both of which the G gets dropped. And people think that because she is always shown as grieving for the death of Jesus, that it's the origin of the word maudlin, as in lost in grief. Yeah.
Which I think, yes, feels very plausible, and I would like that to be that to be so, because it makes so much sense. Okay, so any more on Magdalen as she stands? Okay, let's introduce another character. Having just said nobody else is coming, in immediately comes Second Mary, comes in and says,
"Ah, my heart, what thou art faint! How long shall we thus make complaint? So sorrowful time never was. When shall comfort come of our desire? What woman is this that lies here? It is Magdalen, alas! Sister Magdalen, why wail ye on this wise? Good sister, we pray you, stand up, arise, comfort yourself wisely."
Of your coming, sister, I am glad. Iwis, I know that well that be sad. Ye have cause as well as I.
There is no good creature, dare I say, but inwardly sorrow he may, and complain bitterly, to remember the fell torment and cruel pain of this innocent, which lived so virtuously. Of his meekness himself he offered. Whatsoever pain to him was proffered, this lamb, God's son so free. Nothing raged he, ne was impatient, but even most meekly, till his pain he went, with bane benignity. From the time of Abraham, and that our fathers from Egypt came, or when sorrow was massed, I am sure was never day so piteous, so doleful and so dangerous as Friday that is past. When all the cruelty was outsought to destroy him made all thing of naught, to slow him that gives life. Out of my mind this never go shall, that for man died the maker of all, by his maned passive.
So doleful a day was never before this. But go we to the monument where his sepulchre is, to anoint his body there.
Sister, I come for that same intent. There is nothing can me better content. To go I have no fear.
Then, good sister, let us go devoutly.
Abide, yonder comes Mary Jacobi. I trow with us she'll go.
And the third Mary indeed comes in.
Oh, good sisters, how is it with you?
Ah, dear sister, never so evil as now.
Good Magdalen, say not so. This is the third day, you remember well.
Yea, but of my master and lord I hear not tell, therefore I cannot cease. We were going to the monument, whereas lieth that sweet innocent. Lo, here, ointments of sweetness.
Good sisters, on you shall I wait.
Then let us take the way forth straight.
Sisters, I perceive the place is hereby. Let us ordain our anointment accordingly, with all humility. Here lies he that was merciful to sinners all. Here lies he most piteous when we did call. Come near, sisters, and see. Lo, here is the place where the body was laid, which born of a virgin and a clean maid. Till honour it, great cause have we. Good sisters, be we not afraid to do him reverence and duty. Here he lieth, whose life surmounts all others, which raised from death to life Lazarus, my brother, now a living man. He lies here, which by his power divine in Chana Galilee turned water to wine, as many testify can.
Whom seek ye, woman sanctified?
Jesus of
Jesus of
Nazareth,
Nazareth,
crucified, the Redeemer
the
of
Redeemer of
mankind.
He is risen, he is not here. To his disciples he shall appear. In Galilee they shall him find. Mulier, quid ploras? Woman, why weepst thou so?
Oh, mine heart is full of sorrow and woe. My Lord that was the King of bliss is taken away. I wot not where he is.
Come hither, woman, approach more near. Be of good comfort and of good cheer, for so great cause ye have. He that ye seek so busily, with good mind, so faithfully, is risen here from his grave. The Son of God in his humanity suffered death, and by his divinity is risen the third day. For redemption of man was he born, displayed on the cross, and all too torn in right piteous array. The battle is done, and victory renewed. The great enemy of man thereby is subdued, the most hated mankind. Come hither, and behold with your eye the place where the body did lie. Be joyous now of mind. Lo, here is the cloth dropped blood, which was put on him, taken of the rood, as yourself did see. For a remembrance, take it ye, and hie you fast to Galilee, for there appear shall he.
Yet must mine heart weep inwardly, yet must I mourn continually, minding my master dear. Oh, what mine heart is heavy and loath when I behold this piteous cloth, which in my hand is here. This cloth with blood that is so stained, of a maiden's child so sore constrained. On a cross where he was done. Oh, rigour unright! Oh, cruelty! Oh, wicked wilderness! Oh, perseverity! Oh, hearts as hard as stone, to put to death a lamb so meek! Well may the tears run down your cheek, well may your hearts relent, minding the pain my lord and master felt. Oh, in my body my heart now doth melt. To die I were content.
I'm just going to brief us pauses there because, as we found last time, this is a very emotionally draining play, and dipping in and out every so often does help. There's lots of really interesting things here. Minor location changes, probably not very big, but maybe a different part of the space as they move to where they would represent the tomb, but also use of props. That Magdalen gets given something, the winding sheet by the angel there, and it becomes a very physical reception of your grief. And the fact also we got stage direction inferred that you started lying down, or sitting on the floor at the top of your top of the play, because Second Mary comes in and goes,
Yeah,
what are you doing down there? And so there's all sorts of things here. Thoughts?
Well, I think the implication, with no lighting or effects, you can't very well start sitting down. You have to enter and then find a place to do it. And in that grieving speech, I guess, the actor would find a place, which would be an exciting thing to find. The other implicit stage direction that I noticed is when the three Marys say that they'll go to the tomb, then let us take the way forth straight. And then the next line is, sisters, I perceive the place is hereby. So they've walked from somewhere to somewhere else, and we have to think of a way to somehow illustrate that.
Yes. Talking of liturgical drama, the trope of, whom seek ye women, and they say, Jesus of Nazareth, that is a trope going back to at least to the 10th century. It's repeated in liturgical drama all around the world. It is sort of the central column, or at least that's the idea of what our central column of a certain kind of religious performance comes from. It's a little more complicated than that, actually, but that's always been the orthodox view.
Isn't the Quem Queritas one of the earliest pieces of written drama that we have? That it's in Latin and it's chanted.
It's 10th century. The one we have, the Quem Queritas trope, and it is, yes, it's chanted in Latin. There, it's explicitly part of the service. And this play is perhaps the end point of that journey of something that is still explicitly connected with the church, but which has clearly taken quite a much more dramatic form, rather than something that's actually very brief and much more music-based. I mean, that said, there could be music in here. I mean, we don't have any cues, but there's no reason why the actual trope element is not still included in that text. Possibly, I don't know. Yes, Alan.
Just a thought, at this period, would the Marys have been read by women or by boys?
Nobody knows. There's no inherent reason why. It depends on the institution. If it's a nunnery, we still have them. Everybody could be women. We do have liturgical services written by nuns that are, entirely female performers and writers. It's outside of our remit because it's all in Latin, and also it's available on YouTube. There are links on available, so you want to look for that. A project has actually done a lot of work on some of those pieces, but who knows? Anything else before we move on? Okay, I'm going to ask Magdalen, could you just go back a few lines, pick a lamentation, just to give Second Mary and Third Mary a lead in, as it were, for this continuation.
Yep, that's fine. I'll go back to well may the tears run down your cheek, okay?
Yep.
Well may the tears run down your cheek. Well may your hearts relent, minding the pain my lord and master felt. Oh, in my body my heart now doth melt. To die I were content.
Sister Magdalen, to blame ye are, with this deadly sorrow yourself to mar, yourself thus to torment. Ye torment yourself and crucify. Ye have cause to take gladness. And why, ye have proof evident, that your master and ours by his godly might is risen from death to life. An angel bright shows these tidings till us, and showed us the place where his body lay, which is not there. For thy let pass away our sorrow most grievous.
Sister Magdalen, in your heart be stable. We shall hear tidings right comfortable, and that I trust shortly. For that is sooth veritable, said so afore soothly.
Ah, sisters, my sloth and my negligence, I have not done my duty, nay, my diligence, as unto me did fall. At my master's sepulchre, if I had given attendance and weighed wisely with humble affiance, as I was bound most of all. I should have seen his uprising glorious. Of my sweet lord of thee, which desirous I am, and needs must be. Alas, sisters, I was too tedious that holy sight to see. Then I should have had comfort uncomparable, of the which joy to speak I am not able. Then I had seen my lord to have risen from his sepulchre with his bloody wounds. Of him I had been sure. Alas, when I record how I might have had a sight of your presence, who then ought to vere conquerors to be more glad than I, which ye have called by ye grace only, being greatest sinner unto your large mercy, and that most courteously. Whoso will not wait when that time is, when fainest he would thereof shall he miss. So it fares by me. Oh, would to God I had made more haste. My soothful work is now in waste. Yes, good Lord, have thou pity. When Simon to dinner him did call, among the guests and strangers, all with meekness soberly, I come in with mind contrite, for I had lived in foul delight, in sin of lechery. Notwithstanding the great abomination of my great sins, full of execration, yet of his benignity, as with all mercy he was replete, he suffered me with tears to wash his feet. Through his merciful pity, my sinful lips, which I did abuse, to touch his blessed flesh he would not refuse, and now right openly of his most piteous tenderness, the pardon of my sins and great excess, he gave to me wholly. Now may I ring, both weep and wail.
You did.
You've accidentally muted yourself, Sascha. Hello, Sascha. Hello, Sascha. You accidentally muted yourself.
Yeah.
Can you hear us? I don't think you can hear us.
Yeah, I can now.
You accidentally muted yourself, or you went muted.
It
must be a computer glitch because you couldn't hear us saying you were muted, so it must be.
I saw the little mute icon appear next to Sascha's name, so something.
Yeah, I think the computer, some software glitch just happened. Sorry about that. You were doing so beautifully. Do we know where it was?
It was minding on Friday his great battle, I think was the first line we lost.
Oh, okay.
Go from now may I ring?
Now may I ring? Yep, certainly. I swear, just to make it clear, I swear I touched nothing.
No. You couldn't hear us either, so I'm assuming it was a computer glitch.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you. Right, let's get back into it again. Hold on. Now may I ring, both weep and wail, minding on Friday his great battle he had on cross of tree, and took upon him for us all to overcome the fiend that made us fall. Oh, sisters, well mourn may we.
Sister Magdalen, it is but in vain thus remediless to make complain. Therefore it is the best, each one of us a diverse way to take. His appearing joyful may us make, and set our hearts in rest.
Yea, to seek and inquire, let us fast high. Sister Magdalen, this is next remedy, and therefore depart we.
O Lord and Master, help us on high to have a sight of thee.
And exit the Three Marys. We'll just briefly pause there. Lots of really interesting things there. It's the nature of Mary's grief there. It's not that, he's dead, that you weren't there when he rose. Yeah. You should have been there. And following on from you going, I really want to leave now. And, I don't think there's any passive aggressive hint at your other Marys for delaying your arrival. I don't think that's in the text, but it sort of popped into my mind at that point. But yeah, that should have been there, should have been in that moment. And so again, it's another sort of interesting series on the regret theme that we're getting. Other thoughts? because that is very much the end of that scene. Lynn.
Well, the English teacher has to notice that, I'm noticing the verse form, which is interesting. You've got a rhymed couplet, then the third line is not rhymed, another rhymed couplet, and a line that rhymes with the third line. So you have A, B, C, B, and everybody pretty much sticks to that, the angel included. And then here, beginning with, it's like the top of my page 6, you've got, how might I have sight of your presence, who then ought of very congruence. And then every one of those third lines ends the same way. In the pronunciation of the time, I would have rhymed with courteously, me, soberly, pities, lechery, E. That third line is always that vowel sound. And then at the end of this passage, high and remedy and we and high and thee would all have rhymed. So that's this sort of, I'm going to claim this sort of audible signal that we've got, we're closing out a section.
Yeah, I'll go with that. It is very nicely structured, I have to say. I'm really liking the
Yeah, it's a very challenging verse form that the writer has chosen to impose upon themselves.
Sascha, I think you were waving.
Yes, that's right. I think as well, the emotional journey for Magdalen is a lot more rooted as well, and you can actually, following on from the structure comment, because I did the last one of these plays last time as Magdalen, and you can actually see how well the two are beautifully connected in this. It's almost like it's a seamless, well, this is from reading it anyway, it feels like a very seamless way of a transition. So you can actually not only see, but if you're performing Magdalen, you can feel her journey as well. And it just so beautifully put together. I mean, all of her speeches, all the Mary speeches, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, they're very much feel structured as part of a unit. You know, they're part of a continuing event told at different times, different days. I mean, going back to, I think Liza mentioned this, you know, the specificity of the days, you know, and they keep talking about Friday. You know, it literally was Friday, the other day. So you get a real sense, and presumably the audience is semi-mandated to be there regardless. So you know they were there the other day, and you know, are part of this communal act, which, you know, has more power than, you know, we necessarily can conjure today. Sarah, I see a hand.
Yeah, I think there's a nice bit of characterization going on as well, with the Marys, in terms of after the angel has appeared to them, you know, you've got 3 different reactions to it. You've got Mary Magdalene, who's still very wrapped up in her grief, and she's like, oh yeah, but like, you know, this is all very well, but I'm still in this place emotionally, and I can't just go, oh, I'm happy now. And then you've got the second Mary, who's like, yeah, no, this is fantastic, this is really great, let's go, this is amazing, and she's hanging on to that. And then you've got the third Mary, who's kind of like, well, if it happens, this will be really good, and she's like the more measured, calm one. So I mean, again, I just think it's really, we talked about this with the first play, that how truthful those reactions were, and I think we've got the same thing here.
Yes, it is that wonderful thing. You know, we just saw an angel. Are you not with us? That was an angel, but Magdalen's reaction is not. It is, you know, a legitimately slightly irrational response of, you know, it should be joy, but actually no, it's regret because she wasn't there. And you know, it's that complicated. You don't always feel the thing you should be feeling.
Exactly.
And it's all about emotion. All about, you know, the plays so far in this sequence of, you know, it's all been about living in that moment of history and making that real for the people in a way that I don't think the mystery plays quite do in the same way. Being street theatre, I think you can't do with street theatre this kind of interiority. This is simply why having a controllable space changes the way drama functions.
Yeah, because you've got that authenticity of the emotions and the detailed observation of their different responses, which I suppose you couldn't possibly have, like on the back of a cart in the middle of the street or whatever.
Additional thoughts before we move on? Anything else? No, lovely. Okay, so we go to essentially a different scene, or at least new entrance, and we're going to meet Peter. I don't think we met Peter in the previous play. We're going to be having a recurrence of John Evangelist, but I don't think we met Peter last time. I am just double checking that. Peter has his own demons to be conjuring with here in terms of his own regrets and griefs. And it's another one of those stonkingly long speeches. So take your time, pause, don't be afraid to luxuriate in the emotion, because I think that's what the text wants us to do. Enter Peter.
O Almighty God, which with thine inward eye seest the deepest place of man's conscience, and knowest everything most clearly and perfectly, have mercy, have pity, have thou compatience. I confess and acknowledge my most great offense, my foul presumption and unstableness. Let thy mickle mercy overflow my sinfulness. And yet I know well, no earthly thing can tell, nor yet it express my fault in great sin, which I am wrapped in with heavy, deadly heaviness. There may not be lightly a greater trespass than the servant the master to deny. His master, his own kind master, alas, I make confession here most sorrowfully, that I denied master, and that most unkindly. And when they did inquire if that I didn't him know, I said I never saw him. Alas, why did I so? With tears of contrition, with tears of compassion, well may I mourning make. What a fault it was, the servant, alas, his master to forsake. When his grace called me for the world, for worldly business, and of a poor fisher his discipline chose me, I was called Simon Bariona, plainly to express, but he named me Petrus. Petra was he. Petra is a stone of full of stability, always steadfast. Alas, wherefore was I not stable, according to my name, steadfastly? Oh, my feeble promise. Oh, my great unkindness, to my shame reserved. O mind so unstable, thou hast made me culpable. Death I have deserved. It pleased thy goodness great kindness to show me, calling me to thy grace and goodly conversation. And when it pleased thy Godhead to take but 3 to behold thee in the high speculation of thy godly majesty in thy transfiguration, thy special grace did abill me for 1. And with the good blessed James and thy cousin John. Alas, that I was so unkind, to him so tender of mind, to me most unworthy. Alas, the pains are smart, which I feel at my heart, and that so bitterly. O Lord, what example of meekness showed ye? On Thursday, after supper, it pleased your grace to wash your servants' feet. Whoever did see, most perfect meekness showed in any case. I myself was present in the same place. Alas of myself, why presumed I, considering your meekness, done so steadfastly? O mine unkind chance, when it comes to remembrance, in my mind it is ever, I feel out of measure deadly pain and displeasure that I cannot dissever. O merciful Redeemer, who may yet recount the pains which thou thyself for us did endure? Unworthy if I were, I was in thee, with thee in the mount, but thou, sweet blood drops man's soul to recure. In that great agony, I am right very sure, stony heart of flint, thou would them have moved, saying thy tenderness to man, by thee relieved. Oh, that passion was great, when bloody drops of sweat ran down apace. That was exceeding pain in every member and vein, as appeared by thy face.
I'm just going to pause midway through that because I'm finding the structure of this really, really interesting. With the long lines, you're getting plot, actual sort of exposition, and then in the shorter line, it seems to be heading for the emotion. Emotional response to what you've just explained happens. So, general sense of guilt and confessing that he's sort of betrayed his master, then going into how we met. He brought me to the Transfiguration. I was one of the elect who went to that. Oh, he washed feet. He was great. And all of those elements, but then that emotional response following it up. I mean, not to say that the longer lines are unemotional, but there does seem to be. I'm not making that up, am I? I mean, is that a fair way of assessing it?
The English teacher says that's a great observation. You get an A.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
10 points to Gryffindor. Right.
And what I observed was more formal. The short lines kind of force you to speed up, where they certainly encourage that encourage you to change the pace. But I think that's right. That's because that's an emotionally driven. So the pickup and pace and the intensifying of the emotion, those go together. Yeah.
Alan.
I was thinking it's almost a sort of verse chorus structure, isn't it? Between the long and the short line sections.
Yes, the even though it may not be sung, it all of this does feel quite singy. I don't know if Liza agrees with that. That's a sort of thought.
I would agree. I mean, especially the shorter lines. I'm counting lines, and the longer sections are rhyme royal. In seven lines, and the shorter sections are 6 lines, which in tail rhyme, which is what romances were written in.
So the verse form will slightly shift slightly further on.
As it does, but it's really, it is really interesting between the narrative and the lyrical.
Sarah?
It has fantastic emotional eloquence as well, this speech, and it reminds me, not so much in the structure, although a little bit in the structure, of that great big speech of Mary, the mother of Jesus, in the resurrection, because that had such variation in it. I mean, it went on and on and on for pages, and I think this is probably going to as well. But it was so emotionally eloquent, and I was reading that one, so I was kind of more focused on reading it. But with this, because I'm getting to read it, I'm just really enjoying it, because it's beautifully put together. It's beautifully written. And it just, again, it feels so authentic. This is a man who is just consumed by regret and guilt, and it's just, it's kind of intimate. It's like you're kind of eavesdropping or spying on this man's private interior prayer and thought, and it's incredibly intimate.
I think, however, it is nowhere near as long as the Lament of Mary, thankfully.
Well, lucky you, Lynn.
I don't think anything is, actually. It's one of the longest speeches we've come across. Liza.
It's lengthy. One thing I wanted to flag up is the highlighting of Peter's relationship to Jesus as servant to master, and the way in which we get religious drama enforcing the social order, saying there may not likely be a greater trespass than the servant, the master, to deny. Yeah. And these are, in some ways, this is the hierarchy that the church was there to enforce. The vertical ties that hold the world together, from God to king to lord to peasant to that servants obey masters and serve them loyally. Children obey parents and are loyal to them. Wives obey husbands, and everyone's happy.
Yeah. I was going to wait till the to the end to bring that up, but yeah, that's definitely some cultural work that this text is doing. The greatest sin of all, it claims, is disloyalty. You know, not murder or lechery or theft or anything like disloyalty. Peter is claiming that's the worst thing a person can do. So yeah, we're definitely doing that kind of cultural work here to reinforce that the great chain of being idea, right?
Alexandra.
And just adding to that idea, that point that is being made right now, it is doing that. The writing is doing that by stirring up emotion, by causing something very strong and visceral and very personal in the audience, and then sort of pinning onto that these cultural I don't know what to call them. Imposition isn't the right word, but reinforcing these things by first stirring up something very powerful to hook them onto. So it's in a manipulative sense, it's terrible but very effective. If you think of it as, you know, using good to do good, which presumably was how the author was envisioning it, you know, it's a fantastic way of achieving education to some extent, or social order, or what have you, through kind of the godly power of emotion.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that, but I might not say them at all in session. I have some dark, evil thoughts on that, which I might add in later. But let's finish the speech. Let's get some more evidence and see how it goes. A little over halfway through. Let's see where Peter goes. He was sort of midway through his life's journey with Christ. Let's see where the narrative goes.
Of Judas thou wert betrayed by and by, which was thy disciple, and familiar with thee. It grieved thee more, I knew it certainly. He was fed at thy bird of thy benignity, and yet thou wert betrayed by his iniquity. If a stranger had done that, did so traitorous, it had been more tolerable and not so grievous. David did say in prophecy, homo pacis mei in quo separi supplanteut me. O Lord, your patience may be perceived, which suffered so to be portrayed. Of Judas woe is he. Full of woe may I be, sorrowful and pensive, complaining and weeping with sorrow inwardly, and weep bitter tears all the days of my life. My unstable dealing is ever in mine eye. I said I would not leave my master for to die. He said I would forsake him ere the cock crow thrice. But I was presumptuous, unaware, and unwise. Afterward, when he looked upon me with a mild countenance, as he stood on the ground among his enemies bound, oh, I wept abundance. Then my tears continually ran down most sorrowfully, and yet they cannot cease. How may I cease or stint? If my heart were of flint, I have cause to weep doubtless. O caitiff, O woeful wretch, from my heart thou may fetch sore and sigh deep. O most unkind man, what creature may or can thee from slander keep? To forsake thy master so tender and so good, which gave to thee the keys of all holy kirk, and moreover for thy sake shed his own blood, O sinful caitiff, how ought sore till irk, I sore till irk. Alas, John, why did not I follow my master so tenderly as did to the end? But for ye dealt so steadfastly, my master gave you Mary to keep in your command. If this deadly woe and sorrow endure with me unto tomorrow, mine heart will break. Now, Lord, for thy tender mercies all, reconcile me to grace and to thy mercy call. Alas, I may not speak.
And enter various disciples, well, I say various, unto Peter. We're going to have Andrew and John. That's actually it. That's all the disciples you get. Greg, your music.
Brother Peter, what needs all this? I see well good counsel will you miss. Dry up your tears and rise. Comfort yourself, I require you, and pray. We shall have good tidings. This is the third day. Sorrow not in this wise.
Stand up, good brother. Measure your heaviness. It's great contrition of your heart, doubtless. To God is pleasant sacrifice.
O good brother Andrew and John, was never creature so woe begone, as I, a wretch most unwise, for remembering the infinite goodness of my Lord and my unkindness done so wretchedly. At my heart sorrow sits so sore that my deadly pain increased more and more. Alas, my great folly.
Good brother Peter, yourself thee comfort. There is none of all but comfort may he have, for among us again our Lord shall resort. By his passion, his purpose was mankind to save. This is the third day in which from his grave he shall arise for a death, I have no doubt. Therefore let comfort put this sorrow out. Brother Peter, the very truth to say, few of us all had perfect steadfastness, but somehow what doubted were out of the way. Notwithstanding of his Godhead, the clearness showed by his miracles with all perfectness. And if you remember, brother, in his last oblation, he spoke of our unstableness and of his desolation, saying, Omnes vos scandalum pertermini, or ye shall suffer slander for me. As who say ye shall forsake me alonely, the hired man shall be stricken, and the flock, which we be, shall be dispersed and shall away flee. O good brother Peter, heed you our frailties all. Our good master is merciful and gracious withal. And you, brother Peter, the most specially has cause of comfort for of his church the head he chose you by order, by his grace freely. Forth from your heart put this fear and dread. If ye remember, he said to you indeed, thy faith shall never fail whatsoever befall. Therefore have good hope and comfort spiritual. Ye asked him once a question wherewith he was content, how oft to your brother's sin ye should release. Ye thought 7 times were very sufficient, but he said 70 times and 7 ye should forgive doubtless. A great number it pleased him till express the great frailty of man he saw in his godly mind. For your trespass pardon may ye find. Howbeit of yourself to presume to blame ye were, man that is frail of himself should have fear. Your penance and contrition acceptable must be. Therefore in your heart rejoice, ye may be fain, remembering he has put you in great authority, that he has said once he will never call again. Quodquemque ligoris, he said, these words are plain, and gave you the keys of heaven and of hell, so to louse and to bind, this can we all tell.
Now, before John the Evangelist starts speaking, it's an interesting. So once again, we have someone who is in great distress, and I failed to read the stage direction, so I apologise for that earlier. So Peter, at the end of his speech, at least, sort of flung himself to the ground and is weeping in for his love for his master. When Andrew comes in, and it's once again, it's someone saying, in this case, we've been taught to forgive others. You really need to forgive yourself, is one of the central pillars of what was going on. Andrew always seems thoroughly sensible, I have to say. Sensible chap. Alan?
That stage direction, I think, also occurred pretty well the same at the beginning of Peter's long speech. In other words, he's discovered weeping,
He's
on the
discovered weeping.
ground.
He hasn't thrown himself on the ground, though, yet. But you're right. It was absolutely, he's weeping for the love of his master, yeah.
Because I looked at it and I couldn't understand the Latin until you just gave that gloss.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of weeping going on. Alexandra.
Really quickly on the subject of Latin, I just loved that little moment of Latin, 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 he said. These words are plain. I'm not even going to translate them.
Well, you're still in the period when the church services would have been in Latin, aren't you? So they would have been known phrases that would have been heard in every service.
Yes, but whereas for the rest of this, as far as I've noticed, for the rest of this play at least, there has been Latin, English translation. So repeating myself, but just making sure everybody knows what I'm saying. This one moment doesn't do that, and also the phrasing of these words are plain. I just love that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Other thoughts about this? Again, this little exchange. We're about to get John the Evangelist speaking in a moment, so we'll probably have another expansion on pull yourself together, Peter. I may be unfair there. That assessment. Other thoughts?
I agree. I'm sorry, just going to say, in previous session, I thought that was stunning. That speech, beautiful, very compact, but beautiful.
It's just mind-blowing, actually. I mean, yeah, sorry, what the hell I put down in the chat for those watching out there? I'm literally blown away with how the men are constructed as well. You know, it seems to be very equal in this version, which is really refreshing to see in text like this. So, good job.
Yes, and it's interesting. Peter's, we mentioned briefly that the verse does slightly change its sort of regularity. I don't know whether that reflects cuts or changes or just a different mood. But those shorter lines, maybe another way of looking at it is sort of interiority for the shorter lines, exteriority for the longer lines. I don't know if that's another way of looking at it. Liza?
I think it would be very fruitful to at least try it or workshop it that way. One thing that I've informally been doing with the text I've got in front of me is inserting line breaks at the end of the rhyme royal stanzas, at the end of the 7 lines. And I think that the thoughts are very nicely broken up into those stanzas. And if I was cast in this play and had one of those long speeches, that would probably be the first thing I'd do is just divide it into stanzas for ease of memorization and for thought transitions.
Yes, I mean, it's something that you also get in mystery plays as well, though possibly for a slightly different reason, is that, units of action do tend to be stanzic. You'll have a stanza covering something, then you move on to another one, or an elaboration, and they're very, very blocky in that sense. And yeah, I think that's a good point. Any other thoughts before we go into John? Okay, John, deep breath. See you in a bit.
Right. Good brother Peter, mark ye well and note the word of Andrews has been sad and ponderous. In your conscience, I know well it's not so great a mot. But that mercy may clear it of him that is so gracious. Peradventure, it's the will of our Master Jesus, that ye should not be present his passion to see, which he had on the hill in most cruelty. Peter, if you had seen your master at that point, I troy that sight had been too heavy for you to endure. He had torment upon torment in every vein and joint. He was so hard nailed to that painful lure. His flesh that was so tender, born of a maiden pure, and was wont to be touched with virgin's hand sweet, was all too torn piteously from head to the feet. When his body was hauled and stretched with ropes, to cause his arms and feet to holes extend, then the nails driven in, and of the blood drops ran out so plenteously, his will it was to spend all his precious blood, Man saw till amend, without complaint. He suffered the nails and the spear. Greater pain that he had was for his mother dear. He suffered patiently, to be betrayed unkindly, to be accused falsely, to be entrapped cruelly, to be scorned most denyingly, to be judged wrongfully, to be damned to death dolefully, with other pains sear, to be crucified piteously, to be wounded universally, with scourges, nails, and spear. For these causes he would be born of a maid most obedient. Now the great reason he paid, which was required for redemption of man, of the Father omnipotent, the time of desolation is now expired. The time of grace is come, so long of us desired. Heaven gates so long closed for great sin, our Saviour gave you the keys to open and to let in. He knew well, for his death we should be afraid, and therefore, as ye remember, he told us afore, his Godhead saw well we should be dismayed. Of his resurrection he comforted us therefore. He said he should arise and live evermore. This is the third day, therefore doubt nothing. But shortly we shall hear of his glorious uprising. Brother, I would tarry with you longer here. Needs I must go to the Virgin mild. Most sorrowful is her heart, most heavy is her cheer. All joy and comfort from her is exiled. All her remembrances of her dear child. My master assigned me to give her attendance, and that is my duty, with all humble observance. Her sorrow increase I, as well at night as day, in most piteous array, for I dare say surely, soon her son was betrayed, and in his grave laid, the maid has me dismayed, the sorrow inwardly, that she neither took rest and sleep, nay, from heaviness herself could keep, but evermore still does she weep, that I am very sure, hearts hard than stone, would be mollified anon, and melt to see her moan, that she does endure, to hear her mourn so motherly, to see her weep so tenderly, all mine heart it fails. Now she speaks of the scorns, now she remembers the thorns, and the great sturdy nails. Now she speaks of his patience, now she minds his obedience, that unto death was. Now of his visage speaks she, defiled with deformity, of foul spitting, alas. Now of his wounds does she speak, and of the spear which did break her son's blessed side. Thus is she all comfortless, replete with all dutifulness. Therefore I may not bide, as for this time I will depart. Brother Peter, be of good heart, for no other cause have ye none. Now farewell for a start, I shall meet you anon.
Pray for me, brother, for God's sake.
Brother, to you no discomfort take, but trust ever faithfully. We shall have comfort, your sorrow to slake, and that I trust shortly.
And exit John, leaving Peter behind.
Brother Andrew, God reward you specially, for John and ye, with your sweet words of consolation, hath eased my mind with comfort steadfastly. I am in true faith and hope without desperation. In my soul now having spiritual jubilation, trusting on the mercy of my Master and Lord, of whose infinite goodness I shall ever record. Let the dew of mercy fall upon us. Ostende faciem tuum et salvi erimus. Show thy power, good Lord, and to us appear. Let beams of thy grace approach to us near. Super nos, wretched sinners.
And exit Peter and Andrew. That's an inferred stage direction, not in the original. So it's there's an interesting journey with this one as well. I mean, John's point is slightly different. It seems to be, he's saying our master had a choice. There was a path laid out. You are not really responsible for anything. You may have done some form of betrayal, but you didn't really. There's something else going on here. I don't know if he's grief shaming him when he's talking about Mary there. I may be being unfair there, but it's sort of, he really does go, Mary's having a really tough time. I'm assuming this is Virgin Mary rather than Magdalene. Or did I read that wrong? Because he's going to go off to visit her, who's in a bad way. Not unreasonably. Am I being fair or unfair there?
Yeah, fair, I think. John being the apostle closest to Mary, if she doesn't appear in this play, John is the appropriate person to talk about her. What I like is that these characters are not lost in their own grief. Peter is, but the others in their long speeches refer to what other characters are feeling, which is wonderful. I think it makes it much more of a story, much more of a and it makes the characters much more human. That they, earlier we had the various Marys saying, "I'm sad. Don't be sad. It's bad to be sad." But these guys, Andrew and John really go into why Peter is feeling this, and they do help.
Mm. Yes, there is a sense that they are a community. They know each other. They know their foibles, and they are pulling different gears and trying different things to get through it as much for themselves as other people. I mean, when he's describing what Mary is feeling or what she's going through, there's that thing: is he sort of vicariously talking through his own feelings by talking about someone else? And that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it works. That at the end, Peter says, "Thank you. I was despairing. I'm not anymore." And despair at this time was considered a sin because it meant that you lost your faith in God's infinite mercy.
Yes, that's what really sends you to hell. You can do all sorts of sins, but if you give up on God, yeah, you're damned. Lynn. Muted at the moment.
So we were talking about the sort of emotional pitch of this piece. So I see the emotional, the type of emotion we're appealing to varying a little bit. So, but in the whole first part, it was sorrow, and I'm grieving because my Lord is dead. I'm grieving because I did the wrong thing. And in this, we sort of have we move from pity to terror, where we have this graphic depiction, this graphic description of the crucifixion that's really kind of terrifying, like talking about the bodily torture and how it was stretched with ropes and these big nails. And so we are not just making the audience feel sad or the congregation feel, we're making feel sort of terrified and revolted. So we're going through this whole range of emotions.
It's interesting. Both this resurrection play and the burial play both touch on what happened just before. They're doing the burial. The crucifixion has happened. We never see it. We potentially see the removal of the body from the cross as our opening gambit, depending on how actually staged this text is. There's possibly a representational quality rather than fully actually putting someone up on a cross quality. Whereas with this, it's slightly more straightforward in terms of spaces, areas, and a prop so far. Other thoughts before we go into almost our final stretch, really?
I want to hear Alexandra's theory. It's really interesting, and I think the viewers should hear it.
Yes, there's been a lengthy musical chat in the chat section, so you set yourself up for that one.
I'm so sorry. Yes, so what I was pointing out in the chat is that I'd noticed how there are specific sections, and particularly individuals, because that's how this seems to be structured. Person speaks for a really long time, then person speaks for a really long time, but they are in the verse very clearly delineated. So the Marys together have a particular structure. Peter has his own, and then John Evangelist speaks in a different way. And I was wondering whether we're just missing the music to this prototypical Jesus Christ superstar. Whether this would have been, in a serious sense, whether this would have been potentially constructed with music, with something being integral in a musical sense, that would be quite clearly differentiated in style or in, I don't know, type. I don't know the correct musical term, so that we would get a journey as an audience between the different scenes, as it were, or the different sections, in the same way as a modern musical does, or an opera. Because I feel like that would have an augmenting effect to what this does to our emotions as just verse.
Yes, Liza.
That is, that is so interesting, and I'm really glad you said it. And yeah, I mean, I would love, for one thing, I would love to see it tried. When people propose wild ideas about interpretation, my instant reaction is, show me. I would love to see it. I'm an opera singer. I would love for this to be an opera. And in the chat, you also mentioned Handel's Messiah, which again is very, very few of those settings are verse. The libretto of the Messiah is really interesting, but they both take bits from the Bible and give them to individual voices, individual characters. And you're right, the different characters here do have different styles of verse. You could analyze it in a way that would be gendered, or you could analyze it in other ways that, as we've been doing, that distinguish between possibly narrative and emotion, or in classical music you get the distinction between recitative, which is mostly words with just piano chords, and aria, which is a melody with fewer words but more feeling. So the long and the short lines do remind me of that, and I would love to see that tried. We in the previous play in this sequence, Christ's Burial, there was some indication that some of the verse sections, especially for Mary, the mother of Jesus, that particular Mary, that she went into a specific form of poetry, and then she said to, I think, the Magdalen, she said, "Why devise you not?" Or, so that it was an indication to me that she might be singing there, or at least she might be be inspired in some formal verse. Partly it's a question of intensity of emotion. I'll shut up now. Sorry, I've talked a lot.
No, I just want to follow, in terms of the relative simplicity of the staging of both of these texts, also, an oratorio style, logic fits itself quite nicely. I'm also quite interested in this one. We have a scene with 3 women and then a scene with 3 men. And I'm just wondering whether there's a logical, there may be an angel, there may be a Jesus appearing. Spoilers there, people. Who come in, and then potentially everybody comes together at the end. Possibly, I'm not quite sure how many people are all there at the end, but there might be a certain logic that also follows there between the voices you have available on stage for different sections. And obviously, when we say an angel comes on stage, they probably have a choir available to fill in the back there.
Choir singers and choir boys acting is something that we see throughout the early modern period, and that's a really nice suggestion of who might have performed this piece, because you do have a troupe of boys and a troupe of men in a church choir, and we do get them later. We get them actually explicitly directed to sing antiphonally, which I'm really looking forward to talking about.
Yes. Alan, before we move on?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, actually, Alexandra mentioned JC Superstar. The one that's resonating more with me is Godspell, which is much closer to the theme of this piece, whereas JC Superstar goes in slightly different directions.
I mean, I was going for that one for a joke, but the idea of it being, whether obviously this is in a very serious sense, taking the gospel given version of the stories and adding the under layers of emotions and of kind of internal background, I guess. that we don't get in those few verses saying, and then, the three women came and saw that the stone had been moved. They were encountered by an angel, told them that he's gone. The end. We're getting a lot more of that, which is wonderful. But yes, I do feel as though this is very much done in a way, as I was saying earlier, about those added layers of reinforcing the civilization that we are currently doing this under. That this is part of that. I cannot phrase this correctly at the moment. Sorry.
That's right. I think we've covered quite a lot. We've got I think possibly 2 units of action now to go. So we'll just move a little further on. So Peter and Andrew have just exited, and we have the entrance of Mary Magdalena or Magdalen coming back on stage again.
Oh, I wretched creature, what shall I do? Oh, I, a woeful woman, whither shall I go? My Lord, where shall I find? Where shall I see that desired face, which was so full of beauty and grace, to me the most unkind? I have sought and busily inquired him, whom my heart alway has desired, and so desires still. Quem diligit anime mea, quesui illum, e non inui. When shall I have my will? I have sought him desirously. I have sought him affectuously, with business of my mind. I have sought him with mind heartily, the treasure wherein my heart does lie. O death, thou art unkind. On me use thou and exercise the authority of thine office. My bales thou may unbind. What offence, death, have I done to thee, which art so over unkind to me? Nay, death, be not so. Filly Jerusalem, whereas ye go. Nunciate dilectem meo, quia amore langueam. Of Jerusalem, leave virgins clear. Show my best love that I was here. Tell him, as he may prove, that I am deadly sick, and all is for his love.
And Jesus enters before her.
Mulier ploras, quem pueris? Woman, why weepst thou? Whom seekst thou thus? Tell me whom thou would have.
I seek my master and sweet Lord Jesus, which here was laid in grave.
Woman, thou mournest too piteously, and complainest thee most heavily. Thy mind is not content. Thine heart is troubled, well I see. All full dolorous as thinks me. Thou hast not thine intent.
Mine intent, that knows he on whom my heart is set, and I shall be. Garner, if I you pray, show unto me if ye can, if that ye did see yet any man take his body away.
Maria.
Rabboni!
Nole me tangere, Mary, touch me not now. But into Galilee go thou, and to my brother say, and to Peter, which sorrowful is, that I am risen from death to life, in bliss, reigning perpetually. Exhort them to be of good cheer, and hastily will I to them appear, to comfort joyfully.
And exit Jesus.
Oh, mine heart, where hast thou been? Come home again and live with me. My great sorrow is past. Now may thou intone a merry song. For he whom thou desirest so long, I have found now at last. Oh, I thank your grace with heart entire, that of your goodness to me would appear, and make my heart thus light.
And enter second and third Mary.
Soror, nuncia nobis, good Magdalen, sister, how stands with you?
Dear sisters, never so well as now, for I have had a sight of my Lord and Master, to my comfort special. To his Godhead I render thanks immortal, as I am bound of duty.
It appears, sister, by your countenance that the great sorrow is out of remembrance, and so, by your saw, great cause have ye.
I have great cause, sisters, I know it well. For out of my joy he is the spring and well, and of my life's sustenance.
Have you seen our Lord, sister? Are you sure?
Sister, I have seen my greatest treasure, my heartily joy and pleasance.
Ah, sister, great comfort may your heart inflame.
Ye good sister, he called me Mary by name, and spake with me homely. I saw him bodily in flesh and blood. Our Redeemer, for which for us hanged on the rood, he showed him graciously, and bade me go to his disciples soon, them to certify them of his resurrection, and so will I shortly do.
Magdalen, right happy ye were. He spent not in vain so many bitter tear. Great grace is lent you to.
And then we have a stage direction which I'm just struggling to pass. But we'll go back a little bit before we move forward. And actually, no, we won't. Because, yes, Jesus reappears again. I think basically that's what it is. And the three...
He appears, he salutes, he greets the three women, but he doesn't say anything to them. They kneel at his feet, I think.
Yeah, well, they proceed towards him.
Towards his feet. That works. Yeah. So maybe he's at the other end of the church, sort of thing.
So he's appeared somewhere else, and so again, a sense of dynamic space. Okay, yes, sorry, I'd forgotten this bit was happening.
The women say nothing to him.
Yeah. So he's going to speak now. So Jesus, once again, sorry, I'd forgotten this bit even happened. So, second appearance of Jesus.
Avete, hail, blessed women, leve. My blessing here I you give. Let sorrow no more your heart move, but have comfort alway. I am risen from death, so may ye tell. I have delivered my prisoners from hell, and made them sure for aye.
And inferred exit of Jesus at this point.
Now, good sisters, be no more sad. Ye have cause as well as I to be glad. Our Lord, lieu of his goodness, of his highly and godly excellence, has showed us here his joyful presence with words of sweetness. My words were not fantastical, sisters, ye see. I told you no lessing, sisters, report me. Ye have seen with your eye.
Our spirits be revived, our hearts be light. Oh, Magdalen, this was a glorious sight showed to us graciously.
Blessed be that Lord, blessed be that King, that hath comfort us thus with his uprising so soon and gloriously.
Sisters, in joy of this joyfulness, a song of comfort let us express, with notes of harmony, Victime Pasciali Laudes Immolunt Christiani.
And we'll just pause here before we get to the really exciting stage direction and details of what comes next. But I want to briefly go back over all that because there's so many things in what's happening with Magdalen there. We do have a bit of a tradition of how much does she fancy him? On top of, there is a slightly erotic quality to this relationship, at least on her side, because she's desire, my will, there's a lot in there that's there. And Jesus appearing as a gardener initially, she doesn't recognize him as Jesus. It's interesting that also the script puts in this sort of additional prefix to when he is obviously revealed as Jesus, and he says Maria. It says Jesus says, and Magdalen answers in the script rather than just the speech prefix. And it just seems that that's supposed to be pointing out that this is perhaps a more formal more. This is a moment. I don't know if that's always just the scribe was in a funny mood. Alexandra has a thought on this.
Yes, it supports my theory. If the bit before would have been in music, then Jesus speaketh, as in says in words rather than over the tune. And then Magdalen answers in words, and then we go back to the music, or we go into the next piece of music or something.
I was thinking more the other way around, actually. It felt more like a... No.
It's a different musical.
Sorry, wrong show.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
we're aware.
But yeah, it's that clear relationship that, Magdalen is, it's all about seeing him again, and she hasn't seen him again. And the moment she sees him, gosh, she perks up after that, doesn't she? Now she's telling the others, be happy. She tells us, the other Marys, cheer up. And sort of going, a bit rich.
It's true. They were telling her not to be so sad and counseling her against despair. But Magdalen leads that group. They have to follow where she emotionally leads.
So many high school memories for some. Okay. Any additional thoughts before we try and unpick the lengthy cues that are coming next? I see Liza smiling with joy. We'll come to that in a second. Lynn.
I just wanted to flag up, as we say here, that Jesus' appearance is tantalizingly brief. Doesn't spend a lot of time on stage. I don't know what to make of that. That's just something to notice.
Yeah, Alexandra.
And I've got a very small point to make. Going back to the comedy, the textual comedy that I noticed earlier, Mary says to Mary and Mary, he called me Mary by my name.
Yes, rather than Mrs. Magdalen, that would have been, or Miss Magdalen, that would have been awful. Oh.
I mean, in a story where all the women are called Mary,
yeah,
that doesn't really tell us much.
Mary, 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 and Mary. I mean, be glad you've only got 3 in this one, and an offstage fourth. Sascha, you're muted if you're saying something wonderful.
No, I wasn't really saying anything. No.
Additional thoughts before we move forward? Okay, so we have this lengthy exposition of music and parts, of which I am really unqualified to be able to unpack. So I'm smiling at Liza at the moment. So I rather than try and read it out, because there's an awful lot of Latin, and I suspect our viewers at home will
I'm smiling back, but I may get the Latin wrong, so I apologize if I do.
Oh yeah, that's fine. We're going to make a rough pass of what's going on here musically, because it does seem to be very, very musical theatre here.
So what I believe is happening is it starts by saying, those 3 now sing, the 3 Marys, that is, those 3 now sing Victime Pascali. My Latin is Italian. I'm opera singer. I apologize. Victime Pascali, they sing it, that is an antiphon. I'm if it's okay with you, I found a translation of that bit of chant online, which I will read to you if you wish.
Please do.
Okay, so they sing, the women sing, it's written as a long chant, but they've assigned different bits of dialogue to the men and the women. So the women sing, in the English translation, they sing, "Let Christians offer sacrificial praises to the Passover victim," that is the Easter lamb. "The lamb has redeemed the sheep. The innocent Christ has reconciled the sinners to the Father. Death and life strove in a spectacular battle, but the dead leader of life reigns alive." And then, so the women sing up to there, and then the men, Peter, Andrew, and John, sing, Tell us, Mary, what did you see on the way? I don't know which Mary they're speaking to or all of them. And then the Marys sing again, I saw the tomb of the living Christ and the glory of his rising, the angelic witnesses, the shroud and the grave cloth. And sorry, I'm switching back and forth between word and such at the moment. They sing, Christ my hope is arisen, he will go before his own into Galilee. And then the men sing, warning for anti-Semitism, the men sing, more to be believed is truthful Mary alone than all of the deceitful crowd of the Jews. Anti-Semitism here.
Oh, joy.
And then I believe everyone, yes, the apostles and the women together sing believing together. We know that Christ is truly risen from the dead. On us, you, conqueror, king, have mercy. Amen. So then the stage direction says, after the song, Peter speaks, and then it gives a note about the song, which I believe reads, it's sufficient if they sing to the same notes and tune that they have in the usual sequence. And a sequentia is a Gregorian chant. But we are used to hearing Gregorian chant as a unison thing, whereas Mary Magdalene Magdalene specifically says notes of harmony. So that, to anyone who studies period music is really exciting, because it gives us it gives us a direction to sing possibly to another setting from the Catholic chant. I'm not sure if we're pre or post Reformation.
Oh, we're still pre-Reformation, very much so.
Okay, so we're good Catholics here, and but
maybe rumbling somewhere far away, but it hasn't reached us yet.
There's a theory that Gregorian chant could be sung in what's called faux bourdon, which is an improvised form of harmony. We think that the notation we have might have functioned as it were a sort of fake book, and people would have known the chant melodies and improvised, and we saw that happening with the development of, for example, the motet, which was based on chant melody. But here we're probably singing faux bourdon, and I'm really happy to have discovered some evidence for that.
Excellent. What I particularly find exciting about this is the fact they're bringing other characters on stage in a dynamic, interesting way, using music to bring them together so that we don't have, I suspect they immediately then sort of almost go back in time in their actual dialogue and go over what they've just sung. We'll find out in just a second. Yeah, there's a lovely way of bringing the two sides of the cast together, who broadly speaking have not met since yesterday, or 2 days ago. Let's move forward then. So Peter then speaks. Let's finish the text, and then we'll go into general discussions as we'll enter extra time. So, Peter, after the song. Lynn, and you're muted.
My bad. How is it now, Mary? Can ye tell any news which may like us well? Blithe is your countenance.
Peter, in your mind be fast and stable. I could show you tidings most comfortable. Trust of this assurance.
Good Mary, of him I would knowledge have.
Peter, our master is risen from his grave. He appeared unto us three in flesh and bone in a glorious wise. He has restored Adam and his into paradise, which were in fell's captivity.
God grant your words were not in vain.
Peter, that I say is true and certain, and therefore doubt no more.
Brother, we saw our Lord face to face. He appeared to us in this same place and bade us mourn not so sore.
He bade us testify and tell that he was risen in flesh and fell, and die he shall no more.
Ah, Mary, great grace to you is lent, to whom our Lord was so content before others to appear.
He said, ye all should see him in Galilee. And Peter, yourself expressly named he, therefore be of good cheer.
Yet to his sepulchre let us go and see, to satisfy our minds from all perplexity.
So counsel I we do.
And they move there, and John is the first next to speak.
Brother Peter, come hither and behold. It is no fable that Mary us has told. This thing is settled low. How say ye, brother, be ye satisfied?
Brother John, I am fully certified to give credence hereto. Now shall the sooth be verified of him that most may do. Oh, much are we bound, good Lord, to your highness. For us were you born and also circumcised. For us were you tempted in the wilderness, now crucified to death, most shamefully despised. Yet all this, good Lord, had us not sufficed, but ye had risen from death by your Godhead glorious. Your resurrection was most necessary for us. Your meekness suffered death for our salvation, and now are you risen for our justification. Your name ever blessed be.
This resurrection to all the world is consolation, for of our faith it is true consolation. Approve it by his divinity.
Brother, joy and comfort and inward jubilation and ghostly gladness in us all increase may. We have passed the time of dole and desolation, and also, I am sure, and right well dare I say, the joyful treasure of our heart we shall see this day. Honour, joy, and glory be to him without end, which after such sorrow comfort can send. To laud and praise him let us be about, to love him and lose him and lawly him load. With mind and mouth devoutly, there, brother, the joyful heart and devout sisters, on your part, intone some harmony.
And all together again, they sing simultaneously Schemus Christum. We'll go back to that in a moment. Let's just finish the text. After the song, John says to close everything off.
Lo, down from heaven, evermore grace doth spring. The goodness of God is incomparable, ye see. Here was sorrow and mourning, lamentation and weeping. Now is joy and gladness and of comfort plenty. Joyfully we depart we now out of this place, meekly abiding the inspiration of grace, which we believe shall come to us this night. Now farewell, every wight. We commend you all to his might, which for us suffered grief.
And it all ends. So, I mean, the question about, we were talking about music earlier, is how much music is in the text. We've got clear indicators that here there definitely is music, and it seems to be part of the structure that the happier they get, the music bleeds in, and it's singing all together. I'm just wondering, is that just simply that they have a beautiful arrangement for all of the singers, or is it possible that it's a song the audience themselves might also know and join in and create more of a communal unifying action there? Liza, any thoughts on that? I skipped over that stage direction a fair amount.
Very, very possibly. Omnes could mean everyone on stage, but omnes could also mean congregation. And it's interesting that it allows you some discretion. They sing Schemus Christum, which is the last part of the chant we went through earlier, which says, "We know truly that Christ is risen from the dead. On us, you conqueror king, have mercy." Just those last bits, and I don't know whether they're chanted or whether there's a musical, a harmony setting. Again, we have the word harmony, which is lovely to hear and to imagine. And then it says, you can sing this, or you can sing another chant or hymn of resurrection. So it lets you pick, basically.
this year we're going to do this. I like the idea that it's a reprise from earlier. We all know this tune now, all together now. Okay, so we've reached the end. The tone has definitely shifted, the introduction of music and lightness. Final thoughts, really? We're about to go into extra time, either about the very end or just the play overall. I've enjoyed it once again. These two plays are really quite fab. I'm very much enjoying them. Who wants to leap in with a final thought or general thoughts? No one's going to volunteer. I will pick. I'll be mean. Lynn.
So it's striking to me for something that is plot-wise so simple. Not a lot happens. There's so much work, so much of cultural, communal, societal work going on here. I mean, we've talked about that sort of reinforcing of the cultural value of loyalty and maintaining place in the hierarchy. There's the little exposition of the actual story of the Passion. So for a non-reading audience, you're reminding them of, so this happened and then this happened and this happened. So you're kind of teaching them the story and teaching them the religious doctrine. You're taking them on this emotional journey, which is socially and psychologically so useful. I mean, I don't think that the person who wrote this was familiar with Aristotle, but that pity and terror and catharsis thing is definitely going on here. That's something that we go to church for, to experience emotions and to work through them and to learn how to manage sorrow and grief and loss and doubt and fear. And that kind of work is also going on here. So for something that outwardly is like not a lot happens, there's so much cultural work going on here.
I think there's that sense of an occasion is run through. The fact that it's happening over a time period. There's so much interconnected. I mean, I think Lynn's point about the lack of narrative, that very little does indeed happen here. It's all about the interiority, and they're calling back to events that happened in the past, same way as Christ's burial doesn't actually, you don't see the crucifixion, but they constantly talk about it and describe it. So it's filling in all those narrative gaps from the whole life story of Christ to a degree into relatively short plays. Lynn again?
I think that I'm sure everyone here is aware of this on some level, but until very recently, in the Western Christian tradition, Easter was the most important holiday, as you know. Doctrinally, of course, it is, and of course, in the Orthodox Church, Easter is still the big holiday. Christmas's centrality is a very, very recent development. The big holiday is the resurrection. So this was like the big day in the religious calendar. So of course, it's going to be a very emotional day. It's a really important. Everybody's in church on Easter.
Alan, any final thoughts?
In fact, it still is under the rules of the Church of England. Any communicant member, to maintain their status, is supposed to attend church at least once on Easter Sunday.
Yes, it's one of those things. The wider culture has shifted us towards Christmas because it's more fun,
more commercial.
Yes, it's proved very difficult doing the merchandising for Easter. It's much more problematic. Any more general final thoughts, Alan, about the piece?
I think it works incredibly well as a piece. I think there is certainly a musical feel to it, even if it wasn't sung, because the way the words are used, they do read, as I said earlier, very much like song lyric. Now that may be part because it was to music, or it may have been to make it easier to act as an earworm. And it is putting over the key doctrines, the central doctrine of the Christian Church.
Yeah.
As Lynn has said, this was the important keystone of the whole belief system.
I mean, to pick up on that point, I mean, yes, we've been talking about music, but it's a church-based activity. This one, it has that ritualistic quality because it is actually part of the rituals. It is actually embedded within the services that will be going on around it. So it's quite different from the more civic activity that's happening out on the streets. This is quite a different beast, and so also it may be about the structure of way it's spoken is to do with the acoustics of the church as well, and the kind of dynamics you can do vocally. It might be part of that. That's one to test. I think actually that's where practical performance in a church setting might actually come to it. And we're talking at a time when churches do not necessarily have lots and lots of pews clogging up the place. That sense of being able to move around the space and having specific areas of the church where things happen. So it actually also functions in a semi-promenade fashion, which I think is quite interesting. They keep talking about going over here and going over there. There's set areas depending on the architecture of a church, cathedral, whatever the actual size of the space is. Greg, do you have any final thoughts?
No, other than really, really nice play. Like it.
Alan, did you have a follow-up?
I just happened to have picked up a copy of the Book of Common Prayer, and the Gospel for Easter Day is John chapter 20, and it's about half a page, but effectively covers the material that this play has covered, but in a lot less emotional detail than we've got here. I mean, this one really is pulling an awful lot of emotional strings. And I mean, I found that speech I had to do, the description of the crucifixion, was an incredibly moving piece of writing in terms of the sheer piling of detail one upon another. Nobody, I think, could have left that, having heard that, without having been affected by it in some way.
Sascha, final thoughts?
Nothing much to add except, again, very powerful. All the characters are so well written. The structure is solid, and the simplicity is what makes this really engaging, worthwhile. And as an actor, reading that, I've done a mystery play. I've done the mysteries in the past when I was training, but I think compared to the one that I did, which was pretty much the whole Old and New Testament, this one, the detail, it's just so spot on and precise. And I think, following on as an observation of what you mentioned about the potential erotic relationship or the eroticism from Magdalen's side towards Jesus, if we look at the historical context, if the Red Sea or the Dead Sea Scrolls are anything to go by, Jesus and Mary were actually married, and Mary had her own gospel that was actually deleted from the Bible because people were scared of what she had to say. And I think even here, there's a really lovely chance to give her that platform to continue spreading his word. And I just think it's so sensitively written that we've got to do something more with these two plays. We really have.
There is something of a tradition of quite a semi-sexual relationship with Christ in by other writers as well. Not going all the way. I mean, the thing is, this doesn't go all the way and doesn't talk about a literal relationship in that sense. It's this internal yearning, but there's a lot else in other texts that we could play with as well. It's alive and well in this text, I think. Liza, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in various Gospels, I forget exactly which ones. In various Gospels, Jesus has an unnamed beloved disciple who is ever in his bosom, and various people have various schools of thought on whom that might be. Mary Magdalene is certainly a contender. Some people also think it's John. So we've got two possible beloved disciples on stage here. John is the one that closes out the play because he's the one whose writing has interpreted all these events to us. The other final thought I had was just, going on from Alexandra's thoughts about music, that, there's so much verse drama from this period, and it would be really interesting to experiment with music being a little more pervasive than perhaps we might think in it. Certainly, people respond to rhythm and rhyme. They respond to sung text differently than they respond to spoken text. As an actor, you respond differently if you're given rhyme and meter in text that you speak. And in this play, we do see different sorts of verse used to convey different characters and emotions, as many people here have pointed out. So, yeah, I mean, it's just going forward and indeed backward. It's a nice thing to think about.
And we should also note, the tradition of the various Marys and of Mary Magdalene is a whole series of mashups of potential different ideas and thoughts and who they are. And depending on what denomination of Christianity you go with, the number of Marys varies enormously. So, and even between the plays we have been and will be looking at in the future, there's quite a different number of Marys available for these plays. So there's all those interlocking elements. Alexandra, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, a couple. So I think it's. I agree with everyone that it's a very effective piece. I would add to that it's a very effective piece of religious theatre, in the sense that not only is it emotionally affecting, and achieving all those other aims that we were looking at, but by putting people through these experiences in that particular environment, it becomes a religious experience. It must be true because I feel it, an augmentation of the faith that one already has through the emotions that one is experiencing. So in that sense, I think it's very effective at the purpose it was constructed for. And I also wanted to point out that it's one of the things that it sort of subtly and without drawing attention to it is fostering, is the sense of community and the sense of mutual supportiveness and love. None of our three male characters says to the women, "Shut up, woman," which we get a lot in various other writings of the period.
We and other versions of this play, possibly coming next week.
And so as a group of individuals, we get them all delineated very clearly as individuals, without anyone, even within the three apostles. We don't have this idea that, yes, of course, Peter is the best because Peter's the one who's going to take over the leadership of the church, and all these other things that can become debating points or points of contention. It's everyone loves each other, everyone supports each other, we're all in this together, which then is conveyed upon the congregation. And I think that's wonderful. That's a great takeaway.
Sarah, final thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed part one. I enjoyed part two too. I mean, both of them, I don't know if they were written by the same person, they probably weren't, but I'm just astounded by the level of emotional intelligence in these texts, and by the authenticity of the characterization. It's just so well observed. I mean, the interplay between these people they are so human. And I think that's just, presumably that was part of its remit, was to actually take these, figures from the Bible and make them relatable to the congregation. And then the interior kind of monologues as well, which are kind of embedded in parts of it, are just, again, so relatable and so human. The characterization is superb. Me personally, I think Alexandra could well be right in that this could be like the libretto almost for a Messiah. But personally, I would want to save the singing for the end, because people do respond differently to singing and to speech, and I actually think the verse weirdly is more powerful when it's spoken, because it's almost like, music heightens everything, and I almost feel this doesn't need it. Weirdly, I realize I'm probably in a minority there, but then at the end, after Jesus has appeared and we're celebrating joyfully, I can totally see where the music fits there. So that's just my thought. But no, really enjoyed it.
Yes, I mean, talking about the interiority, I'll go back to this point I've made many times before, is that, so much of the theatre forms that we've had previously are designed to be bellowed outdoors. You may be in a performance space that is acoustically good, but odds on 90% of the time your performance is going to be not heard, or not heard very well. The moment you start putting things inside a space that is acoustically stable, dialogue in churches is not always actually as easy as you'd think. Certainly not overlapping dialogue. Interiority just naturally happens. So it's that thing of thinking back to the medieval drama where, interiority is not always very apparent. It's not because they couldn't do it. It's just because there was no point doing it. And that form and function and form and content, form decides what your content is going to be like, and how you're going to create it, and how you're going to affect your audience. And I think this is such a wonderful example. These two plays are such wonderful examples of that. The moment you take exactly the same material that you might be doing outside and put it in this context, you can do something radically different. And these two plays are, very similar, but also radically different in their effects. And I find that absolutely fascinating and wonderful. Anyone desperate to say anything else before I close the session? No. Well, we've had a wonderful time with both these plays, both the Burial and the Resurrection. If you've enjoyed this one, go back and watch the Burial. There'll be a link probably coming up on your screen any second now, probably down left or right hand corner. Click on it, go and watch that. And it's definitely down on a project I'd like to do. Certainly thinking of these as audio projects at the moment, but live performance maybe one day in the future, who knows. Thank you very much to all the readers, and goodbye.
Bye.